live on 2 of 3 platforms. So I put this out every week, most weeks, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And oh, it seems like LinkedIn is just having some little problems. Okay, I think I am up and running. Good. All right. Hi, everyone. As always, Will Critchlow here, founder and CEO at SearchPilot. Almost weekly live stream. We get to just talk through things that I've been working on, things I think folks might find interesting, things I've been reading, learning about, and obviously covering some elements of SEO, particularly SEO testing as well, because that's what I spend my working days doing these days. And for those of you who don't know or who are joining for the first time, SearchPilot is the company that I run these days, which is focused on enterprise SEO testing. So we help very large websites test what works well in organic search, particularly for Google, obviously. And yeah, our platform helps folks run SEO experiments and measure the impact of the changes that they're making. And I think I've said this to a few people now, but my background prior to SearchPilot was running a company called Distilled, and we were SEO consultants, and Distilled was an SEO agency. And I really now feel like I would hate to be back in a SEO consultant role without a tool like SearchPilot to enable me to validate my ideas, my tests, my hypotheses, and to be able to produce that kind of dashboard of, hey, here are the list of initiatives that we've been running, here are the list of things we've done to the website, and here are the tangible, real business benefits that we're getting from those. And that's been probably the most exciting thing that I've been involved with building at SearchPilot, is the dashboard side of things, where we get to show the result and the impact of each of those initiatives. Each one comes with its confidence interval, its percentage uplift, all of those kinds of things. And through what we call full funnel testing, connect all the way to the end business result as well. But we'll come back to all of that stuff. So I like to cover in these conversations bits and pieces about what I've been reading, watching, learning, and ideas that have come from all of those things in the week. But this is a slightly funny week. So I missed last week, and that was because I was actually away on, I had a holiday, and we were actually away skiing, which was very nice. And as a result, I spent a lot of time actually reading fiction, which is relatively unusual for me. So I finished the book The Goal, which is a business-oriented work of fiction. And I've talked about that a couple of times on recent sessions. But I also spent some time reading my wife's book. So my wife's second novel, Unburied, is out now, and you can get it hopefully wherever you like getting your books from. And I'm in the fortunate position, obviously, I get to read her work early, but there's no substitute for reading the finished final product when it's actually out there, and you can buy it from a store and actually read the real thing. And so obviously I'm biased, but I also did love it. Couldn't put it down, stayed up late finishing it. So that was fun. If anybody else reads it, let me know what you think. Anyway, so that's fiction. I didn't learn anything really in a crime podcast book, work of fiction, that's going to help either me run SearchPilot or me give folks advice on their SEO performance. I don't think, but if I can't with anything, I will come back to you. I think the biggest Google-oriented story that's been going on while I've been away and since we spoke last is all around their large language model tools. So this tool used to be called Bard, now called Gemini, and in classic terrible Google naming and branding part of the course is the paid version, which I think is called Gemini Ultra, is available on certain professional workspace plans or as part of the Google One Play subscription advanced tier or something like that. I've lost track slightly of the naming and so forth. But anyway, point being, they're very bad at that kind of branding and having one, sticking with a branding and a naming and a positioning strategy for these things. See all the chat apps that have existed since GChat, but they are very good technically. And it does seem like Gemini Ultra is capable of some quite cool things. In particular, this is it million character limit, or token limit rather, that means that it can interpret whole works of fiction, whole. I'm quite interested to see what it can do with contract review, and I've certainly seen some cool capabilities it has around coding. I saw a very interesting one from someone who said that they managed to push their entire GitHub repo into it, including the issues, have it identify the biggest and most urgent issues and suggest ways of resolving those issues, which was quite cool. But that's not what really what's had it in the news this week. I think what has hit the news ahead of the capabilities, unfortunately for Google, has been some of the controversy around its capabilities in terms of, I think, their efforts to avoid past missteps in, particularly in areas of diversity and inclusion. So we've seen previous technologies like this, not as advanced by any means, struggle with stereotypes, for example. So, and some of this is still there in classic search, right? If you do a Google image search for certain gendered jobs, or historically gendered roles, or you get results that have racial bias, have gender bias, all these kinds of things. And I think in presumably quite well-meaning attempts to avoid some of these kind of same problems, Google has got themselves in a bit of a mess where it will, it's become somewhat afactual in certain areas. So asking for, one of the examples I saw was Tudor British monarchs, and it came back with a whole load of racial diversity, and that's just not historically accurate. Or in refusing to do certain tasks because it will be comfortable doing certain things and then uncomfortable doing other things, and will refuse. And I think probably the nail in the coffin that seems to have caused them to back away from some of the challenges involves some comparisons where, I mean, I saw one of like people asking it to compare which was worse, Hitler or various slightly bad things, and it either refused to do so or sat on the fence or whatever else. And I think this is a really tough position for chat applications in particular. I think search has always had this kind of dual, I mean, excuse, I was going to say, but to some degree truth, of the fact that it's reflecting what is actually out there. It's not producing anything, and so it's showing you things that exist, and those things exist whether it shows them to you or not. And also this idea of truthiness, of that part of the goal of search is finding the correct answer. And there've been missteps and there've been failings at this. I remember a recent one around Holocaust denial, for example, where Google was returning some very unfortunate results for that. But and the challenge, it can be amplified by the fact that people don't necessarily, they can search for the bad thing or the wrong thing. And if there is anything out there that supports the conspiracy theory or supports the incorrect assumption, then that can be very challenging as a search engine, because as I said, your kind of role is to show what exists, and those things do exist. Bad things do exist. Humans do bad things, and I think that is going to be very challenging. So, but the large language model chat applications even more so, because this is Google branded answers to things that aren't necessarily questions in the sense of the way search works. So I'm not really sure where this is going. Up till now, I think we've seen this trend for more and more safety from OpenAI, from Google, and then the kind of somewhat Wild West of open source models. And I don't really see a way of putting the open source model cat back in the bag. But equally, I don't see Google in particular, and Microsoft and others, getting comfortable with just unconstrained models either. But what I do think, thinking about it from an SEO professional standpoint, is it does show that there's a long way to go for this technology before it can truly compete with kind of quote unquote regular search. So I think that there are certainly uses for it. I use large language models and ChatGPT in a variety of places in my workflow now, and I'm certainly looking for new ways to do that. But it's not substituting for search. And I think this is, I've said this a couple of times on these streams. I think my general view is that some of it looks just like search. Think about the kind of things you could do in Perplexity AI, including links out, and will continue to drive traffic. Some of it looks unlike search, and there will be a bit of substitution, but I suspect the substitution will be less than most people think, and it's going to be more task oriented and less answer and resource seeking oriented. And so my best analogy for this is it's a little bit like the growth of social media in the late 2000s. If you think back to the time when Twitter was getting started, when Facebook news feed came on the scene, there was a lot of talk of the decline of search as a result. And actually, that's not what we saw. We saw the explosive growth of social media traffic layered on top of continuing growth in search. And that's my prediction. And I know that puts me at odds with Gartner and others. And let's come back in a couple of years and see how some of these predictions have done. But I do find it all very interesting. And I think the most challenging part about it is, I've noticed in my own experience, it can be frustrating when you're interacting with a chat-based large language model, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and it's being a bit too fussy, a bit too prissy, a bit too like, I'm sorry, Hal, I can't do that. All of those things are very frustrating. Yet I see the need for the guardrails, and both on an individual level and on a societal level. I think I don't quite know what the path through all of that is, because I kind of do feel like the better product is the one that is a bit less constrained right now, in terms of that's the one I would prefer to use personally. But I think that comes with dangers and is unlikely to be what comes out of the biggest corporations. So yeah, I'm sure there's some very interesting internal discussions going on about some of this stuff. And anyway, if anybody wants to continue those conversations, you can chat with me probably on Twitter is easiest, where I'm at Will Critchlow. So the other things that I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of a different live stream this week, because as I said, I was off last week, and that means that I've been in a slightly different mindset. I've been a bit more reflective and a bit less work oriented, frankly. As I said, I was reading more fiction than non-fiction last week. But so the big topic that I thought I would cover today is a slightly more personal one than normal. And this came to mind because I saw a tweet from Alex Lieberman, who successful entrepreneur at what's his company called? Morning Brew is the media company that Alex founded. Actually, let me just pull up his tweet. So this was the tweet that got me thinking. He says he's talked to over 100 post-exit founders, so folks who sold their businesses. He says they've all experienced, this is strong, they've all experienced the same challenges after selling their businesses, and lists some pretty big stuff: loss of identity, loss of self-worth, friends calling them sellout, heightened money anxiety, the pressure to build something bigger, boredom from having too much time on their hands, and a tension between ego-driven decisions and intrinsic. And I do think he's doing something really good here about saying, a lot of people won't talk about these problems publicly because they are kind of first world champagne problems. But fair enough. They are real. I don't want to disagree with Alex, because everybody has their own experiences, and he has spoken to a lot of people, and there definitely are potential challenges. But my take on this was that this doesn't really resonate with me. And some folks might know that SearchPilot is the business that spun out of the agency Distilled that I co-founded back in 2005. And in early 2020, we spun out SearchPilot and we sold Distilled to Brain Labs. And that's an exit, right? A post-exit founder. And admittedly, I'm a data point of one. But what I found is most of these things didn't resonate, as you can see with the X's. I'm not going to talk too much about the money anxiety. It's not a big deal. It just, you think about money a bit more after selling your business. But whatever, it is a first world problem, and we'll get over it. This one's interesting though, the pressure to build something bigger. And this is what led me into the work angle of this conversation, which is, what does it mean for SearchPilot, and what does it mean for our customers in particular, that we're building this business, this particular business, in this particular way. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I just want to, before I get onto that, talk about one particular thing, which is this friends calling people a sellout. That does not resonate with me in the slightest. I wouldn't call anybody who did that a friend, I don't think. And also just not my experience. Literally nobody has said that to my face. And that I don't know, maybe some non-friends have said something like that. But anyway, that's just a side note. But this pressure to build something bigger, I put a half against this. I feel the freedom to build something bigger, which does come with a little bit of pressure on myself, I think. But for me, it's pretty much entirely positive emotion. I might talk about The Upside of Stress, the book, on a future live stream. This is a recommendation from my friend Will Reynolds, and I put off reading it for a long time because the title is somewhat off-putting. That it feels a bit rah, let's get up and post our morning workout routines, and a few things like that don't really resonate with me. I shouldn't be surprised by the fact that none of that stuff is Will's style. That's not what the book is like at all. The book is all about achieving hard things, and also about the realization that genuinely we want hard things, and they come with a degree of what you might call stress, and that can be a good thing, but it's a positive emotion. And so anyway, the point that I wanted to bring this back a little bit to the conversation I'm supposed to be having, which is about SearchPilot and what I've learned around that. So I described myself a few times as like a 1.5 times founder. A lot of folks are 2 times founders, right? They found a business, sell a business, start a new business, second time founder. In my case, SearchPilot spun out of that first business, which I started when I was 25. And I've definitely seen an opportunity to make different mistakes along the way, but some things are kind of locked in because of the way it evolved from the previous business. And so one particular thing I want to talk about was what it means for SearchPilot to be bootstrapped. So we got started as the R&D team, basically, within Distilled. Distilled itself was bootstrapped over, 15 years before we sold it. And Distilled funded the initial development of the platform that would become SearchPilot. When Distilled was acquired, we spun out SearchPilot, and now in early 2024, we are an independent small startup owned by myself and my co-founder, the rest of the folks who were shareholders in Distilled at the point where we sold it, and long-standing current team members as well. And I think there's a few things that this means for us, for the team, but most interestingly, probably to folks on this call, is what it means to folks outside the organization, outside of SearchPilot, who interact with us either as customers or in whatever other role. And it's been on my mind recently. So Rand Fishkin wrote a piece on SparkToro about their, what he calls the Calm Company Manifesto. I think he called it Calm Work Manifesto, something like that. And I've seen a few other people talking about the pros and cons of different kinds of funding models. In our particular case, we are cash flow positive. We have to be. That means a few things. We are also very mission driven. That's partly a 1.5 time founder thing. But what the cash flow positive piece and the mission driven piece and the context of the way that we're not beholden to outside investors is, this is a very sustainable business. SearchPilot is here for the long run. We're going to carry on. We're going to be in SEO testing. And I think that is, you see different kinds of ways that cannot be true for certain other kind of organizations. So the very small organizations, the startups in the very early stages, backed by VC type money are essentially bets to see if that will play out. And if it doesn't play out, you know that it's going away. It's not sustainable. They have a runway. We don't. We have no runway. We can just keep going. And they are under ludicrous pressure to die if they to grow or die trying, basically. And as the phrase "go big or go home," you have to remember that most people go home. So I think as a partner or a customer or an employee of those organizations, you just have to go in with your eyes open. No, no, that's what you're signing up for. And that is not our model. Conversely, the very big organizations, unless they have the singular focus in the thing that you do, and there is no massive organization with a singular focus on what we do, then you have to realize that the thing you're buying is one element of their business that is not always going to be their top priority, may not be there for the long haul. You've seen this again with Google seemingly randomly, starting and stopping different kinds of projects. But anyway, not to make it about everybody else. What it means for us, we're sustainable. We don't have a runway, we're cash flow positive. We're not subject to the whims of outside investors who are going to put crazy pressure on us to achieve incredible growth at all costs, or explode the business. What that means for our customers is that we're passionate. This is something that we're in for the long haul, and I think we've kind of demonstrated at this point with the not just me, but a broad range of the team, having been around on the team for a decade plus, is that we're really interested in this market. We're very intellectually and emotionally invested in search, and in particular in search driving real business benefits for our customers. So a lot of passion, as I said, a lot of predictability in the future of SearchPilot, and the longevity that comes with that. And I am excited about all of this. And going back to where I started with the tweet thread from Alex, and I mentioned it in my response to this, is maybe the way out of the challenges that many folks face when they go through an exit, when they sell a business, is that next thing. And I think I've been hugely lucky to have had an opportunity and a deal structured in such a way that I did have obligations to the acquirer on day one and for months after that, but I also had the next entrepreneurial thing underway, and now the next entrepreneurial thing is my only thing, and that puts me in a very lucky position of not being at this point casting around for the idea, going through those terrible early stages. I mean, I say terrible, I love them, but those early stages of trying to build something from nothing, so frustrating. No resources, no anything else. And now we're at the point where we have something, and we're trying to make that something bigger, better, more exciting, more effective, more powerful, a better place to work, a better place to achieve results for our customers. And that's pretty energizing. And so I think that's partly why I've not faced some of those challenges around the emotional challenges and I guess I call them kind of burnout type elements that people have reported feeling after an exit. So per the point of this, I did want to relate it back to the benefits to SearchPilot and the benefits to our customers. But I also thought, post-holiday, maybe this is the time to dive a little bit more into some slightly more emotional, kind of personal thoughts from my side about what I've been up to. So I'm going to wrap up today, just bring it back to business briefly, which is just to say that I know folks sometimes join these calls without a ton of context, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention who I am and what I'm doing and why we're here talking about this stuff. So I run a company called SearchPilot. SearchPilot is SEO testing platform. We help large websites figure out what actually really works for Google and for organic search. And we're rolling out some really cool new stuff at the moment. So if you follow me on Twitter, at Will Critchlow, follow SearchPilot, at SearchPilot, or we're on LinkedIn, and this goes out on YouTube as well. You can see we're posting more and more of these cool new features that we're building. So we've relatively recently released Googlebot integration that uses Googlebot visit data in understanding the progress of a running test and seeing whether we can trust those results yet, because whether enough of the pages have been recrawled since the test was launched. We have recently launched into beta our Google Search Console integration, which is really cool and helps to explain why test results have come out the way they have. So not just say this particular change was a winner or a loser, but to help understand why did it win or lose? Did it help rankings? Did it help with click-through rates? Those kinds of things. And we've got some cool new stuff coming down the track. I think I maybe gave a sneak preview of some of it elsewhere, but we have some new mathematical analysis, new statistical analysis coming that has radically improved our ability to detect whether a test is positive or negative. And that is resulting, or going to result, when we get it rolled out, is going to result in just more winners. And there are many reasons to run tests, and we're all curious, and we all love learning new things. But the business reason is often about discovering the stuff that works. And so the more winning tests is better, basically, not to put too fine a point on it. So I'm quite excited that we're going to be talking about that in more detail very soon. That's probably enough for today. I'll just leave you with the final thought of why we think SEO testing is important, which is basically boils down to three things. So our customers, as I said, are typically very large websites. And for large websites, organic search is the biggest channel. It is amazing how little this is talked about in the C-suite and at the executive level, in my experience, but it is the biggest channel. It is certainly the biggest channel for new business acquisition and new customers and new users coming to those websites. Despite that, it remains the biggest opportunity for many of these businesses that have maybe significant market share, but big ambitions. They've got big growth ambitions mostly, and that it becomes mathematically very difficult to achieve big growth ambitions without your biggest channel being a big part of that. So it's necessary to achieve their big objectives. And finally, and this is where we come in, it historically has been the least well understood channel. So despite being the biggest and the most important and the biggest opportunity, it's the least well understood historically. And that's no knock on SEO teams. We've been there, I've been there. But what we're trying to do at SearchPilot is bring more science and make the channel more understandable, more discoverable, and more legible fundamentally to senior leadership, which can unlock the budget, the effort, and everything else needed to achieve great results. So hope you've enjoyed this slightly more rambly live stream than usual. If you want more information about SearchPilot itself, about SEO testing, or about the platform, if you want to see our actual SEO testing platform in action, if you head to searchpilot.com/live, you'll find all of those things. And if you follow me on Twitter at Will Critchlow, you'll find links to all of the other resources and things that I talk about on this every week. And hopefully you'll join me again. I'm generally on this time, so 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday UK time, which is where I'm based, which is 11:15 a.m. on the East Coast in the US and 8:15 a.m. Pacific time. In the meantime, have a great week.